The transfer of power in our country tonight. Now that the Electoral College has voted, we thought we'd look back at what has been a unique and unusual election, but what would you expect in 2020, right? Tonight, we are going to focus on a couple of key issues this cycle, and we start with the idea of changing the way we elect the president. Several states have signed on to a plan that would essentially use the national popular vote. The candidate with the most votes nationwide wins. Now, you might be thinking this idea isn't new. And you're right, but this plan is gaining steam. In fact, supporters think it'll be up and running by the next presidential election in 2024. Every 4 years, the outcome of the presidential election seems to hinge on just a few states, like Florida or Pennsylvania. So what if you don't live in one of those states?
We're now stuck in a situation where 4 out of 5 Americans don't matter because they live in non-battleground states.
Saul Anuzis is with a group that's trying to change the way we elect the president. Basically, it would guarantee that the candidate who gets the most votes nationwide wins. And their plan is gaining traction.
So our primary goal is to create a system where every voter in every state is a battleground state so that every voter's opinions count.
Right now, of course, the Electoral College decides the winner. Roughly based on population, each state gets a certain number of electoral votes. And in almost every state, it's winner take all. For example, the candidate with the most votes in California gets all 55 of the state's electoral votes. In the end, the candidate with at least 270 electoral votes wins. Here's the proposed plan. Under the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, states would agree to give all of its electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. In other words, states would wait to see who wins the most votes nationwide and then award that candidate all of its electoral votes, no matter who won that state. At this point, 15 state legislatures and the District of Columbia have signed on. Together, they combine for 196 electoral votes. They only need states with another 74 electoral votes to get to 270. At that point, these states would essentially have the electoral votes and the leverage to pick the winning candidate.
So what really happens is all of a sudden you're going to turn this into a 50-state strategy. You have to campaign in all 50 states because we're going to count the votes in all 50 states. Where, like, for instance, in this last election, basically the campaigns only campaigned in 12 states or less.
At the end of the campaign, Anuzis argues the candidates only visited 4 states. Supporters of a national popular vote argue it would engage voters who question whether their vote counts now. If you're a Democratic voter in a red state or a Republican voter in a blue state, one big city often carries the state. So why bother when you know the outcome? Supporters of a change also point out that the election is often over by the time West Coast voters get out of work.
Well, by 8:15 in a normal presidential election, we're calling the game. So then you have a decision. Do I go stand in line and cast what arguably might be a wasted vote? Or do I go home and have dinner with my family?
President Trump got 6 million votes in California and basically had nothing to show for it. Biden won the state and all 55 electoral votes. Under the proposed plan, the president's 6 million votes would count toward his nationwide total, votes worth fighting for. In the end, because Biden won the national popular vote, he would get California's 55 electoral votes.
My opinion is definitely that the Electoral College should be changed. I think that it does not conform to basic democratic values and poses a number of hazards for American institutions and American democracy. So yes, I'm squarely on the side of changing it.
Alex Kesar is a professor at Harvard and has written books on the Electoral College. He says the National Vote Compact falls short in a few areas and thinks it would likely face constitutional challenges. But he admits the plan may be approaching a tipping point that could force Congress to take action. Kesar points out there are other options aside from the compact that could eliminate a lot of the issues with the electoral system, like a constitutional amendment, which admittedly would be difficult. Another path would be to get rid of the winner-take-all system. Say, for example, Republicans in Oregon got 40% of the vote there. They would get 40% of the state's electoral votes.
I think that any change should include the elimination of winner-take-all. It should conform to the principle of one person, one vote, and the electoral system should be clear and transparent and understood by all American voters.
So again, 15 states and D.C. have signed on to this National Popular Vote Compact. Important to point out, no red states have joined, although Saul Anuzis, the supporter in our story there, used to be the chairman of the Republican Party in Michigan. He says at least 10 additional states have approved that plan. And in at least one legislative body, it has been approved. So it's either in the State House or the Senate, and that includes Michigan, Oklahoma, and Arizona. So again, this plan is definitely getting traction nationwide. On the other side of this debate, Ian Drake, he says the Electoral College is working just fine. He wrote an op-ed piece for NJ.com this week. Drake's a professor of political science and law at Montclair State University, and he joins us now. Professor, thank you for your time. Give us your 30-second elevator speech here. You say there's nothing to fix.
That's right. I think the national popular vote appeals to our sense of fairness, but we already have a system with the Electoral College that produces a fair outcome, and it's very democratic because it includes all of the states, and the winner-take-all system that your piece referred to is a popular vote system within the states themselves. So there is a national popular vote winner usually, and that is a winner of the Electoral College as well. The popular vote is on a state-by-state basis. So no matter what state you're in, with the exception of Maine and Nebraska, who calculate their electoral votes on a congressional district basis in part, but every other state, all the 48 other states, there's a popular vote winner on that within that state. And so if you're a Republican in a blue state or a Democrat in a red state, your vote still counts. It's just on a state-by-state basis. And so if we switch to a national popular vote system under the Interstate Compact or under a constitutional amendment, I don't think that we're going to get a better system. I think we're going to get a very different system. And so I think there's some pitfalls to switching to a national popular vote that we simply eliminate with the current Electoral College system, which I can explain.
Right. Well, the two-party system seems to be doing fine at the state level, Professor, where everyone is basically elected by the popular vote.
That's right. And if we look to the electoral system for the presidency, if we switched over to a national popular vote, what we would get is the incentive. Once you change the rules, you change the incentives. And so it's not for certain that the two-party system is going to remain a two-party system, at least at the national level. What you would do with a national popular vote is eliminate the requirement for achieving electoral votes on a majority basis. So 51% of the electoral votes, that 270 electoral votes that you mentioned in your piece, is what you need under the electoral system. But if you go to a popular vote system, you would incentivize additional candidates. So third-party candidates, independent candidates, regional candidates could have a shot at winning the presidency because all they would need to get is a plurality. And in some systems in Europe, you have a popular vote system wherein you can have multiple candidates running and you could win office based on 20% or less of the popular vote because you have so many candidates running.
Right. It's been pitched anyway that there might be a 40% threshold, but we only have a minute or so left, Professor, so let's get to this. The winner-take-all thing, that is one thing that people seem to support if they don't support the compact even. If you get 38% of the vote in your state, you should get 38% of the electoral votes.
Well, under the Constitution, it allows all of the states to create their own method for selecting their electors. That could be a proportional system. It could be a ranked choice voting system. It could be what Maine and Nebraska use, where they decide winner take all on a congressional district basis. So far, all of the states, or most of the states, have decided they want a winner take all system. But again, that's not a constitutional requirement. They could change that. And the reason that the states haven't done so is partly through inertia, tradition, et cetera. But also, winner take all has a very clear winner on a state-by-state basis. You know who the winner is for your state, and it's very clear who they're going to vote for the electors. That slate of electors is going to go and vote for that winner from your state. Under the national popular vote, even though your state's majority voted for candidate A, if the candidate B wins the national popular vote, all those electoral votes from your state are going to B.
Well, this compact seems to be gaining traction, as we said. Supporters think it could be online by 2024. What do you think of the chances that this thing is reaching a tipping point?
Oh, I think they've made a lot of progress within the last decade. And so I think it's potentially likely that they're going to achieve that. As you mentioned, it's mostly blue states. There is some bipartisan participation in support of this at the state level, but essentially these are traditionally blue states that have voted in favor of the compact. If it is achieved where you have enough states that add up to 270, that's when, under the terms of the compact, those electoral votes for the participating states will be awarded on a national popular vote basis. So the theory is that that will decide everything, and all the states that haven't ratified the compact will be left out in the cold. I think you're going to
brought along for the ride either way, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and so you're going to see court challenges, and I think it's likely that it could wind up in the U.S. Supreme Court, where under court precedent, the proponents of the national popular vote claim that they don't need congressional approval, even though the Constitution says they do. But we've never had a compact that's tried to change a federal organization like the Electoral College. And so this, I think, is a backdoor run at amending the Constitution. And I think the court will have something to say about it.
All right. Professor Ian Drake, Montclair State in New Jersey, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Go Red Hawks.
Thanks for having me.